Hello, hello, hello out there, and welcome to another demo of our Claymation Classroom. I'm Jamie Hazelwood.
And I'm Tommy Sims.
And today we will be doing the motions of snakes.
Snakes? Why'd it have to be snakes?
Glad you asked, Tommy. Now, the cool thing about snakes is their movement, or at least one of the cool things, which is what we're going to be trying to do in today's demo. Because if you think about snakes, they never really lift off the ground, but yet they still cover across great distances. And a lot of that is because of that little swing movement that they do, back and forth like so. Which will be great for you guys when it comes to animating your actual characters.
But wait a minute, Jimmy. What happens if your character isn't a snake? Why would it be important to keep in mind the movement of such a slithery creature?
Glad you asked. Because when it comes to snakes, as I said, they don't lift off the ground. And when it comes to your characters, when it comes to the weight and distribution, it's a little harder to have them lift off the ground.
So here's one of our characters. Just show me, for example, what you mean by this slithery snake movement.
So, as we're kind of discussing with the snake, how they kind of go back and forth, instead of trying to, animate the lift with the legs and then trying to hold them in the air while they do a normal walk cycle, I mean, it's just a royal pain, and it could be really frustrating because obviously if he's up in the air and you're trying to animate, it could easily just...
Yeah, we don't want him to fall down during while you're taking a picture.
Exactly. So what's great is if once we kind of understand the movement of a snake, we can kind of just animate kind of like this swing back and forth where it really sells movement without necessarily having to lift the legs off the ground.
So he's going to still walk without lifting his feet?
Exactly. So that way we can
Interesting.
we can do that with a bunch of different characters. They don't necessarily have to be snakes. They could be guys just like this. But before we animate such complex characters like this, we have to obviously learn the lesson. So, if I can get my little stunt double out of here.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is start building a little snake here. And I got just a normal little piece of green clay here for you. And instead of, how we were making like a little ball shape before where it was kind of going all around like so, what we're going to do instead is just do it in one movement like this, kind of like the left to right thing. So that way you kind of get more of a string or worm type shape.
Now what you could also do to make the same shape is actually roll it on the table itself.
Yep.
With just one hand, and you'll get the same snake-like shape.
Yep. Just like this. So, now that we have our cool little body, that'd be perfectly fine and stretchable.
How do you know which end is the head, Jamie?
I'm glad you asked. Well, we got our nice little ready-made head right here. And instead of just, going just like that, it's obviously better to kind of score the clay and kind of smoosh them together like so and smooth it out with your fingers. Always a great tool. Because this, as we've kind of discussed many, many times here, all this stuff is just so easily shapeable, all this clay, so it's best to just kind of use it, you know what I mean? To kind of score them and smush them together to make sure, or to make it look like it just has one shape.
And your fingers are your number one tool.
Exactly. Now, it kind of looks like there's something missing from our little guy. What do you think it is, Tommy?
I think he might have a little bit of trouble seeing which way he's going to be slithering.
Exactly.
So, let's pop these little guys on here right away.
Just like so.
Now you can see where he's going.
Exactly. Now he is good to go. So, now that he knows where he's going to go, let's see what line he's going to be following. Now, what I'm going to be doing with this, just like how we did before, this is entirely optional. We're kind of lay down a blueprint of our motion and movement. And it's kind of more, since this is a demo and not necessarily a full-fledged film like we're doing later, it's perfectly fine to kind of draw these lines down so we can really kind of understand the movement that we're going to be creating. And before we do anything, obviously, it's going to be important that throughout all this movement, the paper could easily be mushing or going back and forth here. So what's good with anything that needs to be stationary or standing still is to use our old pal tape. And we use masking tape like this because it's easy to see right through so it doesn't look so obvious. Great. And now that this is nice and secured, what I'm going to do is just take a little marker like so, and I'm going to draw on the little path that we're going to be doing.
Now this goes back to our timing for animation demo, and this will help us time out how fast we want our snake to move, and it'll just show us the direction of which way the snake is going to be going. Now when you're actually animating, you won't see this to start off, but if you think of, say, a snake in the desert moving through the sand, this is the exact line that you'll see following the snake. So that's a great example of looking in real life to see how things move, and the snake leaves a perfect trail of how it moved.
Exactly. Now I'm going to adjust this a bit so that way we can actually see the movement on here. Great. And I'm just going to keep emphasizing, just so you guys know, this is entirely optional. What I like to do a little bit of the movement at first with lines like this. That way we can kind of get a great understanding as to what we want to achieve. So, before we take any of these pictures, what's great, as we've done with all of our demos, is to have little establishing shots, which is pretty much just you guys just taking a bunch of pictures of just nothing going on here, so that way the audience can be adjusted to the scene that you're going to be creating.
Another option that you guys could do is take your marker again, and just like in the timing demo, just put little notches along the line. And this is completely optional, and this will show you where you want your snake's head to line up for each picture. So think of each line as an image placement for the pictures.
Mm-hmm. And while you guys are doing this, you might not even see that, like, oh, it looks like he doesn't look to be on screen, but what if I take a picture like this and notice, oh, now over here in this little corner, we got a little shadow.
There's just a little black spot.
Which, for you guys, since this is a demo, you can just keep going, or kind of get into the good habit of this. Now that we've seen that there, and be like, wait a second, that wasn't that last one. What we can do on our little buttons here.
You can barely see it, but it's still there, and it will show up in your film.
Yep, exactly. And we make it nice and smooth as possible. So we can just easily go into our camera settings, the little trash can, and just quick, boop, now he's erased. Now we can get back to it. But wait a second, maybe there's another thing that happens, and I'm all of a sudden animating here, and then I accidentally move it like that. Oh,
Jimmy,
no.
Why would you go and do that?
Nuts. Well, see, instead of getting all bent out of shape, you know what I mean?
Ah, I see what you did there.
Nice. What instead of getting all soured out about all that, what we can do is just kind of go back to what we shot before and do our best to kind of line it up right there, because this is a very hands-on type of thing that we're doing, so there's going to be some mistakes, and there's times that you can be easily frustrated, but it's something to not really too worry about, because it's easily fixable. We kind of notice right here on our little on our camera as to how we line it up, so we just do our best, go back to what we're doing once he turns on here. Good old technology. What? There we go. So we do our best to just kind of line it up that we did before.
Now, a mistake like bumping the camera is easily preventable, or like what happened there was the camera shifting. The camera is screwed into the tripod, and you just want to make sure that it's screwed in as tightly as it can be so that way it doesn't wiggle on you. And even though the camera is on a tripod, and the tripod is usually secure standing up on all three legs, what you could do is tape the tripod to the ground, and that way it'll prevent it from wiggling if you accidentally bump it. And even with the paper, too, we tape that down so it doesn't wiggle, but more often than not, you won't have a piece of paper guiding you along while animating, and you just want to make sure that your set inside of the box, or whatever you're animating on, is also secured or taped down to the table, so that way, in case it gets bumped, it doesn't move too much.
Exactly. And one thing to note, you might get a little frustrated if you, it's good to just have the tape down for things that are going to be stationary. In other words, things that won't be moving. So, you might be having a camera movement where you're going to be, taking a bunch of pictures at one spot, but then he's going to kind of follow the character. And if it's taped there, obviously it'll be a little harder to do. So just something to keep in mind when you're using the tape. But since I know that this isn't going to move or should move, I'll have this taped down. So now we are ready to continue on with our shots. And as Tommy put on there little marks, I'm going to follow them. But since he seems to be kind of coming in a little bit too quick, I just want to make sure that he's just barely poking in for our first shot. And he's just following this line. Now, what can be easily forgotten or kind of misseen is that we need to have the whole body follow this whole movement. You know what I mean? Where it really is this back end is following the head, because we can easily just animate the head and move him along like this. But it's not really selling that movement, is it, Tommy?
No, it's not. It looks like the tail is just swaying back and forth and staying very stiff along with the head of the snake, whereas wouldn't we want the tail to look more fluid and kind of follow that curve?
Yes, we do. Because that's the great thing with this clay. You know, you can stretch it and move it out to any shape you want, so you might as well use it. So, back to the task at hand. Now that he's getting a little farther along, take some pictures here. And for the sake of this demo, I'm going to have him go pretty fast, so that way we're not here for 3 hours on end. But obviously, you guys can just take whatever pace you would like for the snake to have.
And remember, the closer together your positions are, the slower your animation will look, and the further apart they are, the faster your animation will be.
Exactly. Good call. And see how I'm just having this back end here follow the same as the front. So he's just going to keep on a-trucking. Now, when you guys will be doing a lot of this like hands-on stuff, like I'm saying, where you might get a little bit scratches, you might even pull apart completely. And just kind of like with the camera movement, it's nothing to get too upset about because it's easily fixable.
Right, you're working with clay, and the best thing about clay is you can always keep reshaping it. So don't worry about misshaping or squishing your character from what it originally looked like. You can always go back when you're done animating and kind of resculpt it and shaped it into what it was when you first started.
Indeed, indeed. So, as you can just see from all the movement I'm doing here, I'm just following it. The little path that we have set out. Great, great, great. And obviously, the closer you stick to your little path, the better the movement will look once we play it back here. And now that our curls are going to be a little bit shorter, I did that on purpose, so that way we can really stretch this character and kind of show you guys to not really be afraid of really shaping this guy to get the movements that you guys want. Whoop. Look at here, this is getting such an extreme shape right here. But it'll be what really sells this movement when we see it play back afterwards. Right, Tommy?
That's right, Jamie.
Glad you're with me.
And another thing to keep in mind while animating a snake in a position like this is you don't want to squish him too much because you do want to keep his shape as best you can from how long he actually is, because snakes in real life won't really squish up and become really, really short or really, really long, though they will usually stay their same shape.
Yes. So, you know, if you guys are squishing this too much, then it might look like he's growing instead of just moving.
Which also would be perfectly fine if that's exactly what you want your snake to do, but if you want him to look realistic, try and keep it the same length.
Yep, yep, yep. And especially on these demos, guys, you don't have to be too concerned if you're not following exactly what we have, because these are just kind of great groundwork to really get a good grasp on how claymation works. That way when we do go to our films, you guys are ready to rock and roll.
And another great thing about these demos is while we're doing our bigger films and things get a little bit too complicated, you can always come back to these demos and kind of just refresh your memory of how you do a simple movement such as this.
Right. Good call. Because, you know, we're just doing a little movement here of a snake, but there's many applications that we can do for it. As we were saying before, with walk cycles, or when it comes to hair. Because really what the slithering motion is kind of a reaction, because the action is the head moving, and the reaction is the tail following it. So if you think about it, with the head, the action, moving to the left or right, the reaction would be the hair trying to follow suit. Right, Tommy?
That's right. And by mentioning hair right now, a good thing to keep in mind to remember the snake thing for is if you're animating a character that has a ponytail or bangs or just long hair in general, the hair would follow through with the movement like the snake's tail. So say if your head of the character is moving to the left, the hair would slowly drag to the right and follow through and wave towards the left, just like the snake's tail here.
Mm-hmm. Also, kind of going off that tangent, it also would be good for, you know, something like a dog tail if he's all of a sudden getting pretty happy, it's a way to kind of show a little movement with the wagging.
Right. It wouldn't move just on a stiff line. It would be wavy like the snake's tail.
Mm-hmm. Now, he's getting close to being off screen here, but I want to still keep going with that movement, because you don't want to ruin your whole film by him just staying stationary. And like I said, this is going through awfully fast, just so that way we can kind of get through this. But that's just kind of a way to show you guys this slithery movement here. So just like the establishing shot, we have our ending shot, the kind of great way to separate movements in films.
And if by chance, if we are going a little bit too fast for all of you, that's the great thing about these things being recorded, is you can always go back and watch them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again as many times as you would like.
Or you can say over as many times as you'd like to.
Yeah.
Right?
Bonus points to the person who counts how many times I said over just then.
Exactly. Or how many times I say that word throughout the demos.
Exactly.
Hey-yo.
That didn't count because I said it, not Jamie.
Good call. Alrighty, so I'm going to take one last one for good measure. And what we're going to do is our simple little playback. I'm going to shift this here towards the camera here. Yep. And then Tommy's going to hit the playback here, just a little button. And then what we'll be doing is rewinding here.
Now, certain cameras will have arrow buttons. Other cameras will just have the circle, as you see here, with different options for camera specifications. And what you can do is just kind of play with it and see which buttons will let you flip through images.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I noticed right away, I must have, in the midst of getting so excited with animating a snake, I had a little bit of a back and forth motion there.
Uh-oh. What are you going to do about that, Jamie?
Simple little fix. So this one where he goes back in.
I see. He pops in once and then disappears.
Yep.
Just going to erase that.
Just a quick little erase. And then, whoop.
Nice.
Just a cool little motion to show you guys. And like we were saying, this is obviously pretty fast just for demonstration purposes. So you guys would, if you'd like to slow them down an awful lot, just have them not move near as much. And now that we have this done, our challenge for you is to do this again, only have no paper or no little marks here to show where he's going to go. So that way we as an audience don't know the movement of the snake, so it seems more realistic that he has a mind of its own.
But what you want to do is keep this in mind and just imagine this line down on the paper and then animate your snake and then just show us how snake-like you can be.
Exactly. Because Indiana Jones might not like snakes, but we sure do. So, now that we have that out of the way, I guess until next time, guys.
Stay animated, everybody.